Okay, we're back in live. Work session, voting session. Excellent. My bill.
Okay, there we go. Just set it up for crayon.
Does that, okay, Senator.
Ready to go.
Thank you. Okay, do we have anything that we were waiting on information that you want to talk about? Anybody? Anybody on staff? Okay. All right, let's do 474. Senator Edwards.
Four is the one that creates the Western Maryland, the Economic Development for Western Maryland for Future Investments Fund. I mean, I went over it last time. I think
Yep.
you ended with a discussion.
Yep.
It requires 20 million over 5 years.
Right, so I went back and, as they say, sharpened the pencil. And I'm going to suggest that we do it, what will amount to at this point, 2-year mandate, 24 and 25, 20 million each. We'd probably need, I don't know if we need to include the fact that we're doing 20 million this year. They don't think it matters in the context of that.
Yeah,
Or-
I mean,
Or the 10 million that was already suggested by the governor. Do we need to do language to shore up some of that stuff? Or are we all straight now that the money is all together?
Care of it, other than adding your 2 years instead of going 5 years, it'd be 3 years counting this coming year.
Correct.
As long as that change is made, I guess.
okay.
We
So
got that?
That's, yeah, so that's bill page 4 for fiscal years 24 and 25 only, is the $20 million mandate to the fund.
Yeah, with the idea we're getting 20 million in 23.
Yeah, I mean, that's.
Go with the
Well, you're actually gonna get 30,
Yeah, counting the 10.
right?
So I guess we leave that in that category, no way to, I don't want
don't
to do
know.
it, so he'll come in and say
You
heck
want-
with it.
Yeah, right,
Just let it there.
yeah, gotcha. So-
Great bill, Mr. Chairman, great bill. With your input, it makes it a greater bill. You're gonna help a lot of people out in Western Maryland, and we'll invite you out to sing from the hilltops.
You don't want that. I do not have the sound of music. No, they will not be alive. All right, so everybody understand what the plan is on this?
Yes,
Is there a motion?
favorable.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Very good. You're welcome. We did 574 already, right? From earlier, right? Okay, that's good. Okay, clean new page. We did the end the weight though too, didn't we? Or did we just, we finished the bill in addition to having it in the, this would be 636. What's that? Yep, yep. 644, is that one for the work group?
That one was not part of the work group.
Okay,
It's
procurement bill, there is an amendment from the sponsor. As introduced, it would have required procurement to put a preference for historically underutilized business zones. The amendment, though, turns the bill into a study. I think you should have the amendment. 644. Yeah. So the
Okay.
amendment strikes the bill and requires DGS to, in consultation with GOSBA, to study the feasibility of establishing a state procurement percentage preference for businesses located in historically underutilized business zones.
Okay. Okay, on the amendment, all's in favor? All right, okay. On the bill as amended, any discussion? All those in favor? Okay. Onward and upward. This is in the, this tip jar is in the work group, right?
The work group did discuss it, yes.
Who?
These
That's
are
Senator Zucker, right?
Yeah, these are the, 647 are the tip jars, and these are the dispensers that mount on the wall so that you can just, almost like a cigarette machine, get your tip jar, or your pull tabs out of the dispenser, is what this bill does. And it just authorizes anybody who's currently authorized to have pull tabs in Frederick County.
Just in Frederick County.
And it only applies in Frederick
So it's a
County.
local bill. Senator Zucker.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. The committee that you requested to be formed we deliberated on it, but we haven't gotten a chance to discuss it. But it does seem, based on the testimony that we heard, pretty straightforward, local county bill. I would say let's move favorable.
Second.
Okay, no objections? All's in favor? Okay. Okay, Fair Hill Improvement Fund. It's 679.
679. So this one requires the governor to appropriate $1.8 million each year to the Fair Hill Improvement Fund. And that'll start in fiscal year '24. And then it makes some changes to the fund to contemplate who's going to do the upkeep of the Fair Hill facility there. And it gives DNR some flexibility as to whether it's going to be the local government, possibly the stadium authority, or a nonprofit entity that may do some of the upkeep there at the facility.
So it doesn't actually specify it, it just says somebody's gonna do it?
Somebody's going to do it as long as you enter into a
You are
grant
currently on
agreement to receive the
675.
funding to do it.
No.
I think there's a lot of moving pieces with this project. This is where the five-star event's taking place, I believe.
Yep.
And so I think they're still working out who's gonna do the taking care of all the facilities there.
So, did the governor put any money in the budget for this?
Yes, there's been 1.8 million the last 2 years.
So is this,
This just requires now, when the state gets to fiscal '24, the governor's gonna have to put the 1.8 million in. The governor's been putting the 1.8 million in fiscal '22 and '23. So it will continue that.
so this is a unique event. I know we supported this last year. I'm a little inclined to, hold back in this sense that it not be a mandate, but that we use the numbers that they're requesting. We'll let the next governor figure it out. It's not a mandate. But it is of consequence in our state. So that's what I would suggest. Anyone have any thoughts about that? Senator Ecker.
Do we know what the ongoing amount that's going to be required Do we have any idea what they need? I
It looks
mean,
like that's what this is.
Yeah, that's what they've been using the last 2 years. So I would imagine, given that the bill came in at 1.8, that's what they contemplate needing.
I guess I'd like to know a little bit more about that and see what options are available too, but,
I mean, we can hold it if you want.
no, I mean, not now, but I mean in the future, because it will be a future encumberment. Thank you.
Senator Edwards?
Did you say 2024?
2024 is when the mandate would
So that would
begin.
give, as the chairman said, the next governor time, if they want to review it and do whatever, and time to hit 2024 anyway, right?
It would be the next budget. So
Yeah,
yeah,
that's what I'm
so
saying.
the mandate would be, the next budget that comes before the General Assembly would have the,
And this is,
Funding
this,
in it.
this is the only place in the state, I'm not a horse person, but does the jumping and that, isn't it a kind of an official, whatever you call that?
dressage, I think they call it 5-star, it's eventing.
Yeah.
So the sideway walking and the horse dancing.
So what I was suggesting was not have it as a mandate, Senator, but just to put it in it as, that it should be funded at 1.8 million, but let the next governor figure it out. Thoughts?
So moved.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
That's great. We're gonna change the shall to a may.
That's correct.
Correct.
Yes.
I just wanted to thank you all again. I just got a text from Senate Finance on Senate Bill 636, which we passed yesterday. They just voted it out unanimously, and they all added Senate Finance as co-sponsors.
His waiver book, program from yesterday. Yeah.
Well-
Gotta come back here, yeah.
Yeah,
Well, why don't we just vote that now?
I think you
So
voted,
moved.
yeah.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Done,
So it's all B&T and all finance.
yeah. Very good. 636. 685. Erica.
That's me. Okay. 685 is a bill particular to Charles County, essentially wanting to set up a Maryland Stadium Authority to authorize them to review and make certain recommendations related to a multicultural recreational and amphitheater facility, as well as to issue bonds and finance the project.
Where's the money? The money's coming from lottery proceeds?
So there were a lot of questions about this. Let me see exactly where the money comes from. I mean, the issue is this, oh, I remember now. So MSA would issue the bonds and the state is responsible for debt service in terms of general funds.
And how high was it, did it go up to?
So the fiscal costs estimate that beginning in 2025, general fund expenditures could increase by $2.65 million annually, assuming a 30-year bond structure.
So I just got to catch up here. So this is the Charles County project, right?
Yes.
Correct.
Okay. And the bill would authorize the whole thing? The planning, the building, the paying for?
Yep, up to 45 million in bonds to finance acquisition, construction, renovation, et
Gotcha.
cetera.
And at $2 million a year for 30 years, that's $60 million, plus or minus. Am I following it correctly?
2.65 million a year.
Okay, so it's more than that, so.
Can I help you? Sir? Thank you.
Where were we? So it seems like a big thing.
It is.
And as I recall correctly, I don't think they have this place, right? They have the vision, but they don't even have the place, do they?
That's what I recall from the testimony as well, that the county itself hasn't evaluated it, there's no site, there's no design. Hasn't really been a discussion with, the local governing
That's right,
body.
I recall that as well.
And MSA also identified some provisions that normally go in these types of bills that are not in this one.
I remember this now, that this was Senator LSE Leeds. I remember that. That's right. No, it makes sense. I mean, I get it. I admire him for leading. I'll give my opinion whenever you want it, Mr. Chairman, but now I understand it.
Let's hear a couple more opinions.
Yeah.
Senator Quarterman.
Thank you. And I just want to review things because I actually walked in the room when he was presented it, and I think it was modeled after, it was the Hagerstown model. And it is not. I think that to Erica's point, and some other points made, that I think they had a commissioner here who testified on her behalf, but not even as the commissioners, because nobody even knew about it locally. They didn't have any revenue in place. County had evaluated. The other issue, I would think also, that I think as a committee we want to look at, there's two bills over in the House right now that may come here at some point in regards to stadium authority, a bigger one with some of the larger facilities and a smaller one with some of the other smaller facilities. Yep. And my understanding is they may have, or there was some talks of amending that to allow these type of facilities in that bill. So I think that would be potentially a better place for it, especially considering where they're not even really at right now, so.
Okay. Senator Jackson.
As a senator who represents part of Charles County, look, let me just say this, that presentation was a surprise to me. However, I understand what they're trying to do. I just don't think that the steps have been taken to do that. So if there's any opportunity to start somewhere, then let's do that. I think my surprise as a committee, was I saw Commissioner Coates here, and then she wasn't speaking on behalf of the commissioners. She lives in that particular district where they're looking to locate the project. And as a delegation, the delegation wasn't a part of this. Folks, some folks do things the way they do things. I think the concept is a great concept. I guess we just need to find out the mechanism for it. But it seems like it's got work to do.
Okay. It's reasonable. Senator McCray.
I think it's the same sentiment as Senator Jackson. Obviously, there's work to do, but hoping that if there's the opportunity to make it something contingent upon, I guess, the local approval and things that we see as the gaps from that standpoint. So it may not be in totality of what his vision is, but at least kind of get him started, because I think that he probably don't know how maybe to get started.
Okay. I think we should probably just hold this for now. Could be a project for after crossover when we figure out what's happening with those other bills.
And for a meeting of
Yeah.
the county delegation.
Yes, yes. Okay. 696.
696, B&T is secondary on this, EHE's primary. This bill establishes a loan assistance repayment program for nurses and nursing workers. There are some amendments which clean up the funding provisions. So the program is $400,000 a year program. And if you turn to page 7, a couple clarifying amendments down on lines 23 and 24, just clarifying that it's an appropriation of $400,000 from the governor. That's the measure for whether or not funds are needed from the Board of Nursing. And then down on line 29, just clarifying language that it's $400,000 per year. As introduced, if the governor put $399, $999 in, then you would also have a requirement for another $400,000 from the Board of Nursing. So this language clarifies that if whatever is appropriated, the difference between that and $400,000 would come from the Board of Nursing to get it to $400,000 per year. There is also money in the budget. I think the fiscal note notes that there's $2 million put in the budget. I don't believe that was tied to a specific program, including this. So as if this bill moves and as the budget moves along, that may be something you want to look to connect.
Yeah, we're gonna need to tie that. We actually put another million on top of that in the fencing list.
Okay.
So, yeah, all that should be tied to the structure. Can you get that?
I can work a budget to note that for the,
Senator Griffin?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was just curious, Philip, and I hadn't gotten the bill open quick enough. But I was wondering if the program is administered by MHEC, because when we had the physician MLARP bill, it was initially implemented by MHEC, and that caused a lot of challenges. So the bill that we passed last year or the year before actually had MDH administer.
this would be MDH.
So they switched it, because when it was introduced, I think it was still.
Yeah, and I think the money in the budget was also in MHEC's budget.
So it's all now, the money and the implementation is through MDH?
I think that needs some follow-up on the money in the budget.
Okay, just wanted to raise that. Thank you.
Good raise. Senator Eckert?
Thank you very much. I've been working with the Board of Nursing on a number of issues, and I shot an email out, but if they're responsible for this 400,000, that's going to be an ongoing issue right now with them, and they were not supportive because a number of these issues, they're really short of staff over there, and they've got a lot of nurses coming out. And they are still on a paper process as far as credentialing due to the cyber attack. So that's going to be a heavy lift for them if we can figure that out. And I've put an email out if I can buy time to hear from them about how we could work that out. I like the idea of the program. I think we need to do it, but there's just that snag.
Okay, so we're gonna hold that.
Okay.
Thank
We're
you.
actually second on that.
You're second, and Senator Eckert, so the bill has, also has a piece that requires a stakeholder group to work to find a permanent funding source. So the transfers from the Board of Nursing are first contingent on whether there's a budget appropriation for the program, and then starting in '26, whether or not there's a funding source identified.
Right.
Senator Griffin?
Thanks. Just to be clear, Philip, I just wanted to follow up. So first, let me say I'm very much supportive of trying to help nursing professionals get some loan assistance repayment. But I just wanted to follow, so is the bill, because we have funding in the governor's budget and hopefully the fenced funding will come through, they don't withdraw funds until what year from the Board of Nursing? I guess that's what I was trying to.
So the first year, and the way the bill is written, it's a distribution, so I believe it's 23,
5 years.
fiscal '23 through '25, so it would, if there's not funding tied to the program in the budget for fiscal '23, there would be a required distribution from the Board of Nursing Fund. So that's why I recommended following up, and if you wanted to ensure that the budget funds were linked to this to avoid that transfer.
Yeah, because the governor's budget, I think, authorized significantly more than the bill even. And
$2 million.
Yeah, so, okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Rosenfeld?
I just want to ask, what is the bill, forget the funding for a minute, what does it actually do?
So the bill sets up a loan assistance repayment program for nurses and nursing workers, and the definition for those categories you'll find on page 2 of the bill. You have the definitions for nurse and then nursing worker on page 2 on page 3.
That's one question I had, is actually, what level of nursing is it? Is this all the way from CNA to BS?
So,
It's a whole gamut.
I looked at that to make sure, but it's CNA, GNAs, certified med techs, medicine aides, and then it goes to advanced practice, all the advanced practice.
And advanced practice means,
categories.
I'm sorry, I don't know the lingo as you do, Senator.
Nurse practitioners, clinical nurse specialists.
But that's below
nurses.
RN.
They're advanced.
That's above.
They're masters in
I'm sorry,
doctorate
that's why I
level.
don't.
Yeah.
So basically, it goes from GNA, CNA all the way through RN, BS, and above.
Correct. The Board of Nursing is responsible for the
All of them, yeah.
professional practice, and, which is RN, 8, LPN and
Gotcha.
up. But they were added CNAs and GNAs and med techs and
Gotcha.
all of these other folks that don't require the same level of
Sure.
credentialing, but they have to be credentialed for safe practice. So
Gotcha.
all of that is included in the bill. I guess the only other issue in looking at the bill I would wonder about, it requires the department to designate the shortage areas, correct, Philip?
I believe so.
And from my understanding, there are nurse shortage areas, and I know from Senator Bidel's perspective, it was long-term care in addition to our hospitals, but there is a basic nursing shortage across the board. But this would require, as I understand it, the Department of Health to designate the shortage areas so that the loans can be.
Right, bottom page 4 on the page 5 of the bill has requirements for the department to set up criteria for requirements to participate, and then bottom half of page 5, subsection B starts a kind of a list for prioritizing using the funding. And some of that includes geographic areas with shortages, and I believe areas of specialties that there are shortages in.
Technically, it should be nurse and nursing assistants.
I see what you did there. Senator Rosenthal?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to hold this just to understand this better, exactly who it covers, how it works, where the money goes, if that would be all right.
Fine.
Thank you.
And maybe you can work out the 400,000 issue with the board.
Right, is that too?
I mean, I'm not surprised by that. That's the same issue that was raised by the Physicians Board on their program.
I mean, the Board of Nursing technically needs about 20 open positions. To really fulfill all the functions, they perform probably, there's probably like 3 other divisions in the Board of Nursing. So that's, I think, part of the concern. There is a loan assistance repayment program at the Department of Health, right? We already have that, but it gets depleted rather quickly. And there needs to be additional resources. My thought would be we might want to take a look at all of those loan assistance programs. There's another bill about a health worker loan assistance program as well. I think that's over in here, finance. And Senator Griffith has worked on this issue for a number of years as well.
Senator?
Yeah, I think we actually heard a bill in here for the health professionals that had a fiscal note of like 35 million or something like that. There already is a commission or a group that studies the physician and physician assistants, MLARP. So I don't know if mushing them together, because they have different boards and different, I don't know if we need to do a separate group. I would be hesitant to mush them in with the doctors group. But I do think a further conversation about the new programs that have come in this session is in order. Happy to be a part of that.
Okay.
And then we have the preceptor program hanging out there too.
We do. But today, we're going to put that on hold. All right. 7:06.
Yep, so Mr. Chair, I spoke to the sponsor yesterday to get an idea of some clarifying amendments that need to happen to this bill. They're currently being drafted. I can give just an overview of what the bill does to familiarize the committee.
Okay.
So this is a bill that deals with the non-public education programs. that serves students that would otherwise be in public schools, except the fact that public schools don't have the capability to serve the needs of these students. What the bill would do is requires these non-public schools to pay those teachers the same as the public school teachers in the same county where the facility is located. And then it sets up some payment requirements to make sure that those schools have enough funding in order to do that without taking away or reducing their expenditures, for the students that they have currently. So there are some technical amendments that need to happen just to ensure that the flow of money is exactly as intended by the sponsor. They're drafted and, I'm reviewing them once I sleep on them because they need to be exactly right.
What's the note on this?
Let me see. I left my file in my office, but I have it right here. Thank you.
No note?
9, he said.
Oh, 9. And as you look down your offense list from the budget, you'll see that we put $4 million in for that purpose. Senator?
Thank you very much. I just wanted to sort of, I'm not going to rehash a public hearing, but I just want to remind everyone that this is public school students who are very smart, very capable, but they're unable to be educated in a public school due to their learning difference or due to their disability. And I say disability is because when they're in these public schools, they're disabled because the public schools aren't able to teach them. So when they go to these non-public special ed schools, they become enabled because they have the ability now to learn with kids with their own learning style. The issue is that all of these children, all these students are public education students who, again, are publicly funded by the public schools. So they're not able to be educated in the public schools, and the public schools realize this, so they're basically paying for these kids to be educated elsewhere. So basically what this bill is saying is, you can't educate them, but we're not willing to pay for them to have the best education they can with their teachers. So what this does is this makes sure that we're already paying for the kids to go to this other school because they can't educate them. We just want to make sure that they're able to retain and attract the best teachers for these public school students who are unable to be educated in a public school based on their disability. And yes, Mr. Chairman, this was a fence off of, I think, $4 million to help toward that effort.
Okay? So it sounds like we're holding, yes?
I might just add that the public school budget pays an enormous amount of money for out-of-state placements because we don't have the expertise here in the facilities here.
Very good. All right, so that's on hold, waiting those amendments. 709.
Senate Bill 709 would establish a post-traumatic stress disorder alternative therapies fund to support the Department of Health in studying the effectiveness of and improving access to alternative therapies for post-traumatic stress disorder in veterans. The bill has a
Is psilocybin?
that is one of the I believe that is one of the therapies mentioned in the bill. Do a quick search. I'm pretty sure that's in there.
You said, who's going to be?
Department of Health.
Department of Health, okay.
And there's a mandate for $1 million to the fund in fiscal '24.
And where are they conducting this? I thought some of these treatments are in research mode as opposed to actual use. Senator?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, so in the hearing, we heard from, and I didn't realize this until after he left, but apparently the foremost expert in the world on psychedelics and their impact on behavioral health was with us, and he cited that while they are conducting this research at Johns Hopkins, the greatest barrier to access is the funding for these veterans to participate in the research studies. And the bill calls for MDH to work with Department of Veterans Affairs, Johns Hopkins, University of Maryland, Sheppard Pratt, Walter Reed, And we requested an amendment from one of the advocates to add brain futures to the group.
What's brain futures?
It's the mental health, oh gosh, I'm blanking on the, Dan is his name? They testified on the bill. I can tell you in a second.
Senator psilocybin is referenced at the top of page 2.
Dan Martin from Mental Health Association of Maryland requested that as an amendment to be a part of the work group.
Okay, so walk me through how this works again. There, the money is going to the health department. The health department then grants it out for research, or?
They would work with the groups I just mentioned.
Yeah.
To determine effectiveness of and a method for improving that access to alternative treatments and therapies, and appropriate the uses of the fund to those research programs.
I'm still trying to grasp this because it's a controlled substance.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't believe I think it's used just at research level at this point.
From my understanding, Johns Hopkins and University of Maryland.
And others. So we're paying, the health department will be paying for individuals with traumatic stress to participate in research studies?
Yes, it would
Okay,
provide for no-cost treatment.
okay. Senator?
Yeah. Is this national research, or is there some Maryland angle to this other than it's being done in Maryland?
Well, we certainly are home to the foremost experts in the world, which is a great benefit. But the other states are tackling this in different ways. Texas just passed a similar bill that would provide for the use of psychedelics in this treatment. Other states have passed bills to fund no-cost access to hyperbaric chambers, which is another mid-research kind of way of providing treatment for PTSD. So other states have done one or the other. This bill attempts to say, we don't want to pick or choose which is the path we want to go forward. We're going to leave it up to MDH and
And how much money is this?
just 1 million to see where it goes and see
1
if it's
million
effective. 1 million once.
I mean, it sounds like a good cause, and it sounds like a good cause, but it seems like an NIH thing. I mean, aren't they getting federal money to do this?
Specifically for veterans with PTSD, not to my knowledge.
It surprises
I
me
can-
and outrages me, actually.
I'm happy to check. Part of the testimony we heard was that, frankly, Federal Department of Veterans Affairs has really not done what they need to do in this particular issue as it comes to PTSD and traumatic brain injuries in veterans. So that's why, frankly, the states are stepping up on an individual level.
Well, I actually would appreciate if we could get information
Yeah.
about the federal angle here, because it does seem to me a federal responsibility.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, $1 million, and
Right.
our budget is $1 million. And it seems to me that it's going to benefit lots of people if it benefits people. And so if we could focus on the federal thing.
No, I'm
Thank
absolutely
you.
happy to get that.
Thank you.
I think this is, our idea was here in the absence of federal action. We wanted to make a movement.
Senator Eckert.
Does anybody know if there's any of that work going on at the Maryland Psychiatric Research Center?
I don't, but I can check. Maryland Psychiatric Research Center?
Dr. Bob Buchanan might know.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, so that's on hold for a little more information. We were passing them for a while, but these are good holds. This is good information. Oof, look at this next page. Oy. 723.
723 is the sales and use tax digital product definition. This bill is sort of a cleanup bill from last year. It alters the definition of digital product to exclude two items that I think everybody thought were excluded last year. Some of this is I think they're exempted, and this places the exclusion under the definition section. The two products we're talking about here are The first one is, it's used in advertising. It's where you commission somebody to produce a product for you to use in advertising. It got confused between sort of clip art that you might purchase from somebody, and then the situation where you would actually have digital advertising created for you on your behalf. The key here is that you hold a copyright or other intellectual property interest in the product, and that's when it doesn't become subject to the sales and use tax. So that would clarify that those types of products being purchased by people doing advertising are not subject to the sales and use tax. The second has to deal with enterprise software, and this is, I think, an offshoot of software as a service, where you're buying these software packages that are much broader than just your Word Perfect or your Word off of the, the Microsoft Word, like you might just buy off the shelf.
I think what it takes is, it takes someone to manipulate it to get to a point where.
Correct. Yep. It requires more than just sticking the disk in your computer or whatnot. So those two pieces would now be exempt from the sales and use tax. There is no fiscal note to this because it's not clear that there was ever any intention to subject these to the sales and use tax. To the extent somebody was paying the sales and use tax, they wouldn't now have to pay it. But if you look at there seems to be some confusion whether this should be subject to the sales and use tax or not. This makes it clear that it's not.
Okay. Is there a motion? All those in favor? Okay. Looks like Senator McCray.
He said he had to leave at 6.
Okay. All right, well, let's hold this since it's his bill. And, of course, we've got 3 bills in front of us. The governor's, Senator Washington's, and Senator McCray's, all trying to do various levels of highway user. I don't know exactly how we're going to sort that. There was a chart in the last presentation.
On the highway user, I just, the feeling that I have on it, we have had such a hard time getting it funded over the years, that if we keep expanding who's going to get more money, it's just going to be harder in the out years to keep funding it. So I just think we need to put some real thought into whether we want to expand it or not.
Yeah, it's an interesting program, that, like everything we do in the state on some level that goes to the locals. Really, I know it's thought of by the locals as almost an entitlement.
Yes.
But it isn't. It never has been. I think it's something that we all value and want to help with, but I do not. It is not. I mean, just as school construction really isn't.
Mm-hmm.
Many states across the country don't help with their school construction. All of which, though, are important as people who represent the state and local areas and the state together. We recognize it's important, but it does raise questions about how much,
Right.
and to what degree. All those questions, Senator.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that, and,
Uh-huh.
I mean, other states allow local governments to tax gasoline sales and other things.
Yeah.
And we don't. And
Some
so-
things we do, but not to
Some-
the degree.
Not to that degree.
Yeah, absolutely.
But in principle, I mean, I've always thought of it as, not the numbers exactly, because you can argue about that, but conceptually, as just a uniform state version of locals being able to raise money from transportation from their folks. And I think a lot of the locals see it that way. And it is the case that the locals do need money to take care of transportation.
No question.
And so, I think, thinking about it in the way that Senator King is suggesting, and you're talking about, I think makes sense, is to figure out kind of a permanent fix as to what makes sense as opposed to what we're in right now.
Well, the interesting problem that we have is we need a permanent fix for our own revenues.
I know that.
And that's the bigger problem, quite frankly, as we try to help others out, we've got to figure out our own house.
And doing that together might be a smart idea.
It may be, it may be. Senator Young.
A lot of towns have state roads that go through them. The two main streets in Frederick were both state highways. They asked us to take them over, and it was kind of implied that if we took them over, we would get transportation money to help take care of them. And so while that may never have been, you know, carved in wood or in bronze, we did take over two main highways. I mean, Route 40 basically came right through Frederick, and so did 355. And when the state built bypasses or highways around them, they wanted to get them off their books, and they asked us to take them over. And again, it was kind of implied that we would get some funding for it, which, when we don't fund it, really hasn't been honored. So there are a lot of promises and things made over the years that haven't been lived up to in that sense. And as far as the gas tax is concerned, you know, all the residents in towns and counties do pay it, and they have major road systems too with no funding source. So I think it's a good argument that they deserve something.
I don't think there's any question with that. Yeah. So it is a complicated problem if you're trying to think of the long term and trying to think of what we're looking at with our own gas tax issues.
Right.
That's the bigger challenge, I think. Senator?
I mean, we've got money to spend this year, and probably for a few years, but looking out into the future, I hope it's sustainable if we keep doing stuff like this.
Yeah, we're gonna have to find it sustainable, no question. I mean, look, we're gonna pass one of these bills this year, no question, in my mind. Yeah, it's just which one, or some combination of them. But I think putting in the context of that our own resources are dwindling and limited, we really should be thinking about what we're doing. But we'll wait for Senator McCray to come back to have that conversation.
You'll have the answer.
He'll have the answer. Let's hope he does. He'll say, my bill. 792.
792 is another horse racing bill. This one deals with the off-track betting facilities. And this one specifies that local zoning approval is not required to use a facility for an off-track betting facility if it's already zoned as a video lottery facility, a sports wagering facility, or an electronic bingo or tip jar facility. So basically, you wouldn't need additional zoning to be an OTB if you were zoned as one of those three things. And then it also authorizes the Maryland Racing Commission to waive the review of the applicant to be an OTB if they already hold a VLT license or a sports wagering license, under the theory that the lottery's review of those two types of licensing is more rigorous than the Racing Commission's review of an OTB license holder.
Okay. Any thoughts? So, I mean, I put the bill in, obviously. It seems like a cleanup to me. Right. No. Not necessarily. I got a few in here, aren't there?
I'll put it a different way. I have no thought on the bill.
Yeah, I mean, I feel it's a cleanup. Obviously, it was brought to me by industry folks. And it seems to make some good sense. Senator Young?
I think it's a cleanup bill. It's a good bill. I think we just have to be careful that somebody can't find a way to slip something new in and then skip the zoning to go through. If it's just on existing facilities as a cleanup, I think it's a fine bill, but
Yeah,
I worry about somebody slipping through.
right. We'll
And
worry about,
avoiding
you mean
zoning.
someone in the legislature slipping it through, or?
Well, somebody finding a way to open one of those other facilities and getting around the zoning as opposed to what's already there.
Have any fears of that?
No, like I said, the bill, if you're zoned for one of those three entities, you don't need additional zoning to then become an OTB. If you're already operating as a VLT facility, you don't need additional zoning to be an OTB. If you're already operating as a sports wagering facility, and remember, some of those licenses haven't been issued yet, you don't need additional approval to be an OTB. And if you're already running an electronic bingo hall, you don't need additional zoning to be an OTB.
So, but if you're just an OTB, and you want to locate right next to Senator Young's house, you need the zoning.
Whatever current zoning laws are required will remain in place, if you want to open just a standalone OTB.
Well, the third one, we can't open anymore without coming through here anyhow, can we?
Correct. That you would need to, and as we heard from Lottery, you may need a referendum, depending on who interprets whether it's an expansion of gaming or not, to open up any more electronic bingo parlors in the state. So, correct, it would be an act of the legislature at least to open up more electronic bingo halls.
And the bingo parlors are clearly defined as the 4 or 5 we've talked about.
There's 6.
The 6, however, yeah. Okay, I guess I was just like worried that even some of the veterans clubs have bingo and they have 5 machines.
Yep.
They will not fall under that in any way.
It's a different kind of machine, right?
Right. The ITML is definitely not.
Okay.
The veterans, because remember, we've got Eastern Shore veterans, you've got Western Shore veterans, so not all the veterans are even consistent across the.
Okay, it sounds secure. I just didn't want something to slip through. I think it's a good cleanup bill.
Great. Right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The next one was the one I thought we would forego in exchange for getting 799 done. Right?
Okay.
Looking at the list. 795 was the full change in CADE. 799 is one we voted on earlier that was just about the waivers. Yeah.
Oh,
Waivers.
I'm sorry, the community college.
Yes. No, I don't think we need to.
We just got passed or no?
What's that?
We got passed before?
No, I'm just explaining why we're not taking that up.
Fine, thank you.
Yep. Speaking of which, we passed over it a while ago, I'm sure, Senator Young's cannabis bill. I had a conversation with the sponsor of the cannabis legislation that will probably be the one that moves. And we're second on that bill. And we came to the understanding that when it comes to us, we'll add, assuming everybody wants to do that, we will add Senator Young's bill to that bill. Okay, 796. It's just all at once.
This one repeals the requirement that the licensed, the veterans organizations that have the ITML machines, repeals the requirement that they use the pre-printed tickets, and allows them to use the print-on-the-fly tickets.
I mean, this seems very straightforward to me. But the lottery representative did in fact said that they were concerned about that in changing or creating a new form of betting or gambling, which just doesn't even make any sense to me on the surface. It's just a technology. When I think about all the changes we made in tax law, it's sort of analogous in my mind, you know? We always intended to tax those things, and now that's just a different thing, so we're just taxing it in a different way, the same kind of thing.
Yeah, my concern is, and I've watched this over the years, is passing something like that just gives some creative minds a way to find a way to have more machines or do something to make more money. That's just how it happens.
Yeah. I don't know how creative they're gonna get. I mean, Matt, this doesn't allow for the creation of anything new, right? Just the way in which.
Right, the way in which the machines operate. The testimony we heard was that there's only one operator out there who makes the machines that comply with the law as it's written. This would open it up to other types of machines that accomplish the same idea. The odds are still, it's not like there's a random number generator in here. The odds are still contained within whatever that set number of polls are. You only have so many winners within that set number of polls. It's just now a computer program's gonna keep track of that, as opposed to a book of tickets that I understand that they're inserting.
Okay,
into
but
the
we
machines.
won't have more machines in more locations, correct?
No, this is just about the machines that are currently at the authorized veterans halls in the
Okay.
state. It's not expanding them to any other types of
Okay.
nonprofits or anything.
Senator Young?
Yep. Pretty well outlined. It does not change anything in terms of the way the machine operates, doesn't change anything in the number of machines that those clubs are allowed.
Well,
But-
the way it operates, yes, because
Well-
but not the way it.
The only operation change is it doesn't spit tickets out anymore. But in terms of the role, how many winners there are and whatever, none of that changes. But the advantage of the bill is that there is only one company in the country, in California, that can bid on it right now. If this were allowed, they basically stay the same, but it would open it up to Maryland companies and other companies.
That's right.
And
As a matter of fact, what I believe to be true, and I don't know it for a fact, is that California company just got sold to a Canadian company, for what it's worth. And that may not be completely accurate, but that's the offhanded information I got. Yeah, I'll tell you what, I'm gonna be abundance of caution, and I think, well,
I think it's a good bill.
how are people feeling? Everybody good with this?
I'm gonna tell you my gut feeling. You hear that?
Yeah.
We've talked about this for years in making changes, and there's always been some kind of a reason that we haven't done it. I just don't wanna do it and then find out that there was a
Okay.
good reason why we
Here's
didn't.
what we're gonna do. We'll get the Attorney General's opinion on whether or not it is a new form of gambling. Okay? Okay, 798.
Uh, 798 is another sales and use tax bill. This one expands the sales and use tax vendor collection credit that I believe passed last year, yes, chapter 354 and 355 of last year. If you'll recall, a certain organization was allowed to retain the sales and use tax that it was collecting, and received a credit for that. And then the amount that they were allowed to retain was $100,000. This bill would repeal that $100,000 limit, and allow them to collect and retain the sales and use tax that they're currently collecting, and use it for some of their, I believe they use it for charitable purposes. It's
Yeah, well, they're trying to build a school that, and they've got these in numerous locations, I think, around the country. They're trying to build a school for adults to achieve their diplomas, their high school diplomas. I mean, it's a good thing. They do workforce development. It's what I learned along the way, and I've expressed to everybody that goodwill is really not about so much collecting clothes and selling them in a store. It's about workforce development. That's what it's their fundamental reason of being. So the way we do this is, in some ways, sort of handy in the sense that we would just essentially not take in, the state would not take in the taxes associated with it. However, I happen to know that this is not something that is favored across the street. And so I'm going to try to figure this one out with a ongoing grant proposal of some sort to see if we can get there that way. The problem with doing that, of course, is just having that annual appropriation for an organization like this, because it is really about operating expenses. So it's kind of, that's why the setup that we had on it, I think, is useful, because we don't even have to think about it anymore. It just happens. But not that we don't lose the revenues, because we do. But I think if we're going to move it at all, I'm going to have to try to figure that out.
Are they eligible for any other type of grant or low-interest loan programs related to workforce training?
Whatever they're eligible for, I'm pretty sure they're on top of it. Their board is, as you may recall, is heavy with people who have been around, who've seen how things work. Somebody who used to run our retirement system.
That's right. I was just thinking we have a lot of funds out there for a lot of different things.
Yep, we do.
Thanks.
Senator?
Yeah, I met with them at some length, and I'm very impressed with what they're trying to do. I was not impressed with their long-term financial planning. I mean, I think they've got an idea, but they don't have a long-term financial plan. And
Here it was.
Sorry?
Here it was.
Yeah, well, but even with this, it wasn't actually,
Yeah,
when you went through the
yeah,
numbers.
yeah.
Actually, this helped them a bunch.
Yeah.
But it actually did not make it sustainable.
Right.
And as I recall, what they said, look, we just want to get up and going.
Right.
And once we get up and going, then we'll be able to raise more money.
Yeah.
That is not a long-term financial plan.
Yeah.
So I would just throw that out there as we try to figure out something else,
Okay.
because I think they need a bigger picture financial plan.
Yep, that's fine. All right. 800.
Another gazelle.
This is my page.
No. That one is mine too. This is another sales and use tax bill.
I'm going to spread them around next time, so that was.
I think that's a good idea.
This is
Different numbers.
That's because I didn't pre-file anything, I just did everything on one day.
No, I know the feeling.
Yeah, so they all got the same.
This one exempts the sales and use tax, exempts electricity that's being used by a farmer for certain farming activities on their farm from the sales and use tax. I believe the example you heard during the bill hearing, I think, highlights the issue. There was a farmer that had one electrical box that was measuring the electricity coming into the house, and then there was a separate box for, the barn or the the other outbuildings of the farm, and that meant that they were having, the electricity was being taxed at a non-residential rate, I'm assuming the commercial rate, and having the sales and use tax applied to that electricity. This would just allow the farmer to not have the sales and use tax applied to any of the electricity the farmer's using for farming purposes.
And as I understood it, there are certainly some farmers out there who just tap into their home, and that's why they don't have.
Yes,
The issue.
if you run your line off your house, you're gonna be using tax exempt electricity.
Senator?
Yeah, how much does it cost?
Potentially significant. So it's one of those.
Yeah.
As someone who does not write fiscal notes, what is the definition of potentially significant?
They don't know.
They don't know, they have no idea in the world.
No, I think,
So there's approximately 12,400 farm operations in the state using approximately 2 million acres. So it could affect 12,000 people, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Senator?
Yeah, they're farms and farms, so, does it apply to a huge farm as well as a little farm?
Just requires that you be raising livestock or poultry.
There's some
Yeah,
big ones.
yeah, right. It doesn't differentiate by size, no. No.
Gotcha.
What's that? I don't know. I mean, it's an interesting question. Yes?
One of the few people in here, some of us that have the rural areas where we see farms of all sizes.
Right.
You have some farms that, as far as your eyes can see, but they also have workers on those farms. And I'm not sure if those workers are carrying different addresses where some of these folks are. So I don't know that. I understand what Senator Middleton was talking about, where, there are outbuildings that are on some of these farms, where folks have either stables where they want to run electricity out there, they have their livestock that's out there. That 12-year-old rodeo guy that I brought in here, he lives around the corner from me, they have out places. But I think, is there any, does it specify, or we're talking, does it just say outbuildings?
It's when the electricity is being used to raise livestock or poultry, or prepare, irrigate, or tend the soil, or plant, service, harvest, store, clean, dry, or transport seeds or crops. So it's electricity used for those particular purposes.
Okay.
I think maybe we need to ask some questions from all the faces I'm seeing about the size, kinds of, if there are any limitations to that kind of thing.
Have we
Yeah.
heard this
Corporate.
with a lot of people?
What's that?
Have we heard this problem with a lot of people?
Well, it's Farm Bureau has brought this in, yeah. I mean, it seems to make, it certainly makes a lot of sense for what we would call a family farm.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I was gonna say, I would suggest we hold it and try to get some information, or if we
Okay.
can't get information, maybe we hold it till next year and try to figure it out.
okay. Senator Eckert?
Not a bad idea.
Just going to say, is Ag Land Tax Exempt?
Is Ag
Oh.
Land?
Ag, it does not differentiate or look at what type of land
So-
it is. It's just these particular, electricity used for these particular purposes.
Got it. I was just wondering in general. Thank you.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman?
Yep.
I guess one other question, do we know if any other states do this? That would be an interesting question as well, because maybe somebody's figured this out.
We can find out.
Thank you.
Okay. 803. JPR.
Senate Bill 803 is going to require the Division of Parole and Probation within the Department of Public Safety and Correctional Services to establish a Monitor 3 employee position classification within the Drinking Driver Monitor Program. It's my understanding that the Drinking Driver Monitor Program basically has two employee classifications. You've got Monitor 1, Monitor 2, and this one would create a Monitor 3.
I think actually there's a third position already of supervisor.
Yes, you're right.
And
So this
so-
creates
Right,
yeah.
so, my understanding is that, and this has been going on for a number of years, it's been going on through our joint chairman's reports, where we have said there seems to be a problem and with regard to retention and such, that you'd want to have another piece of forward mobility for these types of employees, and that's where this bill came from. We had asked for it on a number of occasions. As a matter of fact, in the last JCR, it specifically said the words, we're asking the department to create this position, and they chose not to. DBM. Senator?
Yeah, just a quick question, because I haven't been around budget committees that long. I don't remember bills creating positions exactly this way. Is it a normal thing to do, or would this be first in the nation?
Not first in the nation to create positions like this, but it's rare. It doesn't happen all the time.
Thank you.
Senator Corman?
The last part you said, can you elaborate on that, of like why DBM didn't create it? I mean,
I do not know.
just didn't do it. No, I see their letter, they think it's not needed, but.
And I think, you know, some of us in here, I mean, we've seen this before, it's, I'm sorry. You have the parole and probation folks, and these are the same folks. They go through the same academy, they do everything. They just choose to go into the drink and driving side of it, and then they get left behind. Then they go to a county, or they go to DC, which has 3-year investment after, you know, and I'm not sure how rare this is on the decisions, but I mean, how do we get the department to create those steps or those positions? I'm on board if we want to do it, though.
I'll move favorable.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay.
But I will not carry it on.
Senator Jackson's gonna take that one. We're gonna give you that one.
JPR still has to vote, so it'll be.
We're doing great. We only got 3 more bills right now for tonight. 838.
Senate Bill 838
This bill. Give him a minute.
establishes a minimum amount of funding within the Department of Transportation for elderly and handicapped transportation services in each county and Baltimore City. And this would start in fiscal '24.
What's that amount?
Is 4.3 million.
So,
It just sets a floor.
How much is it now?
I believe it's 4.3 mil, I think that's where the number came from, was that it is 4.3 million, so it's setting a floor, and then, yeah, for fiscal year '24.
I think they're asking for what they're already getting, plus, an increase for,
inflation.
Yeah.
inflation.
Is it actually an increase for inflation? What is the?
No, it's not an increase for inflation, but it's an increase based on. Oh, yeah, nope, actually CPI adjusted, yep. So it sets the floor and then ramps it up for accounting for CPI each year in fiscal '25.
That certainly seems reasonable to me.
So it's a
Yes.
very minor increase.
No, it does seem reasonable to me, but again, what does the money actually go for? I mean, I get the words, but what actually, how does the money actually flow?
It goes for transportation for handicapped and elderly.
Well, no, I get that part, but I mean, this is a grant or a formula that goes to the county, they can use however they want for those purposes?
Yeah, and it has not increased in years.
It's like highway user for this kind of thing in effect, it's a formula?
Well, it's more of a grant, but it hasn't increased in years in the county.
I'm with you, I'm not
and-
against it.
No, I'm saying the county expenses have gone way up.
Sure.
And with no increase in the state, and they're just asking.
Yeah, I got you. For
to tie it
inflation.
to Inflation.
Okay, thank you.
You know, this is actually, it's interesting, because I actually got involved with a nonprofit because of this. I'll get,
So it's in the fiscal note. The program's through the Maryland Transit Administration. It's called the Mobility Link Service. If you're disabled or functionally unable to actually get to a bus stop to use transit services, it looks like you qualify for this program, which provides like door-to-door service by picking up the riders and taking them to wherever their destination is. It's to account for the fact that they're not able to actually avail themselves of the traditional public transit that's available to other people.
so, I'll just speak to the lack of funding for this. And you can imagine at that price point for the whole state, ain't there. My father, when he was alive, he needed 3 days of dialysis in Baltimore County, and the most that that program would give would be 2 days. It'd be very inconvenient in dealing with it for a family. Anyway, we actually created a nonprofit in Howard County that does volunteer trips. It's been very successful. But to the point, this is something that, I mean, I think we should probably pass it the way it is right now, but I think I'd like to get some information from this to see the number of trips, the number of, if they have data on the number of trips they can't accommodate, that kind of thing, because I think this is a big deal.
I know we have that in Frederick County.
Yeah.
How do they actually provide the trips? I mean, who actually hauls people?
They have a truck, they have a van that,
Yeah.
or a car that comes around.
Just a thought,
Senator Stallings knows all about it.
Okay.
I wouldn't say that. But you know, MTA does a lot of this, and they have probably a lot of numbers. But the Veterans also services do this also, through, you know, picking some up and taking them to the hospital, the VA hospital. So you probably can get a lot of numbers from MTA and from the Veteran Services, and maybe find by number, locations, what the services are. But this is something that if you want to do statewide,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah, I'd like to see if we can come up with some language on that. That would get us some information for the future. Senator
Yeah,
Young.
I was just gonna say, we have a volunteer organization that does it also, but the volunteers and the trips that the government's doing, they're still not getting a lot of people. And it's, I think initially it was costing the county very little, but they're spending 3 or 4 times on it, what they get from the state. And they're just asking for a slight increase for inflation, for some help on it. So,
Yeah.
But I think it can
Anybody's
get this-
interested, check out Neighbor Ride in Howard County if they want to do this for their, I'm serious, it has been a huge success story.
Makes sense.
Huge success story, all volunteer drivers. I try to drive once a month. It's a really good thing.
I got one last thing, Mr. Chairman, I'm enthusiastically for the bill.
Yes.
It strikes me though as a model that's kind of pre-Lyft and Uber. And I'm just wondering if, as we look at this, and maybe the whole thing can be done with volunteers, but I think it can't all be done with volunteers, which is why we want more money.
Right.
But I think how the service is actually delivered, I think is something we should get some information on, because it sounds pre-Uber.
Yeah, I mean, it does, there are cost, obviously, issues that are.
Well, yeah, but I'm just saying, I don't know what's more
Yep,
cost
yep,
effective, that's the
yep,
only reason I raised it.
Yep. Senator Eckert.
Thank you very much. I like the idea. We do need it, but my concern is, are we further designating funds out of the transportation trust funds to be used for this that will then detract from other highway projects?
Is this the trust fund?
Correct. That's
I mean, it's pretty
exactly
small now, for sure.
Very small.
I mean, $4 million is, in the scheme of things. But,
Well, maybe we should consider it when we do the highway users.
okay. All right, all's in favor with the amendment for study, or not study, but just information gathering? Yep. All's in favor? Aye.
I'm not sure what we're voting on.
Your bill.
Oh, okay, but you said the amendment and the study.
Well, it's not a study, we're request for information, and we might do it through a JCR as opposed to this, I don't know how you want to do it. What's easier?
But we're approving.
We are
bill.
approving the bill.
Take yes for an answer, sir.
All right, I just didn't understand the second.
Yeah.
What do you think, Erica?
I was thinking, if you want a one-time report, a JCR may be the way to go, but if you want, annual reports and stuff, then the bill would be the better option.
Yeah, probably annual. Some longitudinal data might be good. Okay. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Nay. Okay. No nays. All right. Here we go. This is another one that Senator McCrae's, so we'll hold that. Last bill, 885.
Yep, Senate Bill 885, you do have a reprint on your desk with a couple of technical amendments that came from retirement, as well as, I guess, those of us who work in economic development. So this is pertaining to creating a fund within TEDCO to do early stage and equity investment in new companies. Using up to a maximum of a $10 million sweep out of the rainy day fund under certain circumstances. That $10 million would be put into this fund that is created. And basically providing equity. TEDCO would be the body that administers the fund, and it would be invested in a qualified business in order to make private equity and venture capital in the state. The qualified business, this is an amendment. This is a defined term that currently exists in law for the Invest Maryland program. So it's just copied here because I believe the intent is the exact same, to focus on Maryland businesses and those that are kind of small and less than 250 employees. So that's the companies that the money could be invested in. If the companies, become successful, usually after a 10-year phase, and perhaps they sell or something and earn a profit during that sale, then those investment returns would be realized and put back into this fund. And it would also allow TEDCO to keep 50% of those returns just for their operations. And this $10 million is a one-time sweep, and that is the bill.
Senator
Thank you.
Roosevelt.
I don't know enough about TEDCO, but isn't this basically what TEDCO does anyway? Is this just giving them $10 million more to do the same thing? Oh.
Yes.
Thank you. If I could, this bill was actually introduced because some years ago, while I was in the gap years, there were funds that were surplus funds that were assigned to TEDCO to invest. But they were asked to invest them in a way that is contrary to their mission. So because they invest in new and innovative businesses, their ability to ensure return on investment, like the state retirement and pension type funds, it's just not consistent with how they operate. So they would have been receiving money, surplus money to invest, but this bill will stop that process from happening. They were allocated $25 million that they were supposed to invest in a way that didn't make sense based on how they're structured. So they'd gotten basically halfway through, and kind of said, they came to the joint committee during the interim and said the Joint Committee on Pensions, I think we heard this issue. But long story short, this bill would allow them to take the remainder of funds that they were allocated when they got those surplus funds and invest them the way they invest them, and maybe make money on some innovative Maryland businesses versus tying them to the state retirement and pension system investment process. I don't know if that made any
Money
sense.
that's already there.
It is. It's
Oh, I
not
missed
taking
that- I
money
missed
from
that
any,
part of the
yes,
Okay, thank you.
yes.
Senator,
I don't want to get in the way of that wonderful motion,
Yeah.
Senator King. Just, this was heard in pensions all summer, and to me, it addresses two major issues we heard. One, the TEDCO kind of inappropriate assignment, or they weren't able to use this money. But the other, I think, is also equally important. We have a missing middle for our investments here in Maryland. Kind of companies that are just beyond startup, but not quite taken off yet. And to me, this bill accomplishes investing in that missing middle for our Maryland-based businesses as well. So I second Senator King's motion.
okay, all those in favor?
All right.
All right.
Opposed? Okay, good job, everybody. Shut down the system.